Okay, so Mishlei 24/7, Ramos le'evil chochmos bashar lo yiftach pihu. Wisdoms are a precious stone to a fool. In the gate, he will not open his mouth. And we had a bunch of translations. Sadigon says the fool sees wisdom as two. Okay, so the word Ramos with an aleph means precious stones in Eov. So that's where the Mitzvah Sion got it from. Sadigon seems to be saying that it's basically just the same thing as without the aleph. It's high up. Okay, that chachmas are high up for the fool, meaning are too high for him. Therefore, he will not open his mouth at the gate. Cause and effect. Targum says the fool complains about wisdom in the gate; he doesn't open his mouth. And then Metzudas David Lichter says precious stones are wisdom to the fool. In the gate, he will not open his mouth. Okay, so our questions were: how do you read the pasuk? How do you read Ramos specifically, and what's the relationship between the two? What is an avil in this context? 3, what is the relationship between the two halves of the pasuk? Is there an implicit lefikach, like Sadigon says, or some other relationship? 4, what is the avil's relationship with chachmos that is being described here? And if it's positive, like, because it's not overtly negative at least, so if it's positive, how is this consistent with our understanding of the avil's usual stance on chachma? 5, how do we understand the second half of the pasuk? Why doesn't he open his mouth? Is the second half positive? Maybe it's a good thing for him and for everyone else that avilim don't open their mouths at the gate. And the fact that he recognizes this on some level seems to be a virtue, right? If you, we said that there are plenty of fools who do open their mouths despite their lack of knowledge. 6, what is chachmos in this context? Is the usage related to its usage in the foregoing psukim? Why plural? And what about all the other knowledge terms like bina and takbulos and das? Why focus on the shiur? Is this just an example of where this plays out, or is it a category? Is it specific? How far does the category extend? 8, who is the audience in the pasuk? What's the practical application? 9, is it really true? Don't we see many examples of avilim opening their mouths at the gate? And then 10, side question, Mishlei 17:28 implies that if an avil silences himself, he will be considered a chacham, and how can that be reconciled with this? So on the walk over here, I was trying to review all the ideas. The only one I remember, I think exactly, is your idea, Sean. And I remember elements, but I don't remember which elements belong to which other people. So let me try stating your idea. You tell me if I'm forgetting anything, and then let's try to reconstruct what else we said yesterday. So Sean's idea was connecting this to the previous Chachma terms, that Chachma is received knowledge, which is the most superficial form. That's just like the conclusions of another Chacham or a Navon. Okay, Tuvuna is maybe Davar Mitoch Davar, and Das is like the highest level, whatever exactly Rabbeinu Yonah says that is. So all of these things are only related to by the Avil as the highest level, and they're precious stones. And precious stones are something that is the final, like, polished product. Like, you don't just harvest precious stones out of the quarry. Like, you have to like process them. So whereas the someone who's in tune with the nature of these three terms he'll view chachmos as like the unrefined thing that you then need to go into deeper and refine. The Avil treats it as the pinnacle, and even prides himself on that, you know. And I added to Sean's idea that based on the Meiri, it might be that he thinks this way because he doesn't have sufficient acquaintance with Chachma to realize that there's more depth. It might be because he sees in himself that he doesn't have what it takes to go deeper. It might be that that because his primary attachment to the Chachma is the kavod he gets from it, and this allows him to have kavod by parading around these like jewels, then like he stops there and he doesn't see the need to go further. But the point is that he will not open his mouth at the gate, meaning even when he's in the company of other chachamim, he's not going to delve into this deeper, and he's not going to subject his own understanding to scrutiny, and that's a severe limitation. And I think that was my recollection. Yeah. Okay. All right. Then we had this other idea, which again, let's put it together. Sorry, do you have a?
I was going to say what my idea was.
Can I do it first, and then you tell me if this was your idea or someone else? I want to put myself to the test. So there was this other thing where an Avil has some knowledge, but he basically like hoard is the wrong word, but like he like, you know, well, I mean, he does hoard it, but hold on a second. I do have more. I just want to think what angle to take. He definitely like he relishes that and takes glory in it, and prides himself as though he is the deepest thinker, but he actually on some level senses that he's actually not getting the full thing. And the raya for that is that he doesn't open his mouth at the gate, which means he doesn't subject the chachma he has to scrutiny, and so it is I mean, it's a contradiction because on the one hand, he's saying like, I am this all-knowing being in this area, but like he doesn't actually like place himself with those other people and subjected to scrutiny. Yeah.
Yes, that was most of what I was saying.
Okay, yeah.
But I was also interested in the precious stones. There's like, it's something that you have to like, keep to yourself. And
right. Can't share. Right.
Because if someone else has it, then you don't have it.
Right.
And also, if everyone has I'm just thinking about this just now. If everyone has the same type of precious stones, then it's not. Then like it cheapens it. It's not valuable anymore.
Yeah. Right. Right. Okay. So that is a good idea. So you're saying lo yiftach pihu means that he is not going to open it to share it because that would detract from his limelight. Whereas I was going on the approach that he won't subject it to scrutiny because he knows that it's not really. So I think that is a difference. Yeah. Ezra?
I can find out the same point.
Okay. Yeah. What else did we say? You had an approach also, and then David had half of an approach.
Yeah, I was saying that if you see if you see a guy in the gate and he's being quiet and looking that word
that you're looking for, yeah, right,
things,
yeah,
don't like
contemplative.
Yeah,
that was the word that you said, yeah.
Just be wary, I guess, and I would add that if you know that he's a fool,
yeah,
it seems like the automatic assumption would be to say, oh, this guy's changing, he's turning over the leaf or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's like a habit, And what's going on is that even in his foolishness, like this is a characteristic of the fool.
Right. And that I think aligns most closely with that other pasuk I brought in from Mishlei that it is a tendency of the Avil to be silent, but only in order to be perceived as the Chacham, and you shouldn't be duped by that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I guess the unanswered question on that approach is, given the reality that fools do open their mouths when they don't know, what dictates whether a particular Avil will take that route or this route? I think that's a Shayla question. I'm not saying it's a cushy on your idea, but yeah.
I'd say it's also, even if he's not like doing specifically to be a Chacham, still he seems like a Chacham, he might just be disinterested, and that's why he's quiet. As opposed to engaged but blurting out wrong things.
Right. Yeah. You'll see this sometimes. You see it in high school, but I feel like it's more overt in shiurim given to like balabatim. In many cases, where like they'll attend the shiur, and then some of them will. I mean, of course, there are people who attend the shiur to learn, right? But then there's some of them who are just waiting for the opportunity to show off what they know. So they'll just not attend, and then like someone says something that like that they can then just tune back in and then just share what they know. Like my point in that example is you could see the same phenomenon playing out both as silence or as the opposite of silence, depending on like the how it hits them. Yeah, that's interesting.
And so just because someone's silent doesn't mean that they are paying attention and know what's going on.
Right. Okay, so I have not actually looked at them far from this morning. I got involved in something else. So let's start off with the Metzudas David Altshuler, which we now have to call him that now that we have two. Okay, so what? Yeah. So Ramos, he says, Chachmos, Hima Laha Avil Ke'evin Yakar. So the Chachmos are to the Avil like a precious stone, Asher Tikshe Hasagasa, which is difficult to acquire. The Chadal Mehem. Chadal Mehem? How do you translate Chadal? Chadal is usually to cease or with yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. So he ceases from trying to acquire them, right? What was that?
That's true.
Chardal. Yeah. Yeah.
You must do whatever reply was in my head.
Chardal. Yeah. That's funny. That is why he will not open his mouth in the gate. Malkum Shevas HaChachamim. Okay, so he says so that actually fits in with Sean's approach, not Malkum Shevas HaDayanim, like we initially saw in altar, which is still a true thing, but he's emphasizing chachamim. Kilo lamad meuma, because he didn't learn anything. Okay, so the question is this a new idea, or is this in line with the previous approaches we were taking?
What does chadal mean again?
Chadal is chadal literally means to cease, and chadal mehem means, I think Yaakov was right, he ceases from trying to acquire it.
It's kind of similar to like the Meiri that we were yesterday. Also,
Right.
that was like he sees the whole picture and he's like,
Yeah. Sorry, that didn't go anywhere where it's okay. Yeah. All right. So let's leave this. I think this is this could lend itself to different approaches. All right. Let's do Rabbeinu Yoina. Where is he? Is there Rabbeinu Yoina? Oh, did I?
no, he connects.
Oh, all right. So we'll have to wait on that one. What about the Meiri? Does he also connect it to the next pasuk?
No.
Good. Kolomar. I think that's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kolomar. Shem nimnaos be'einav limto cheker tuchunasan. They are impossible it is impossible in his eyes to find the depths of their character. Meaning it's impossible to get depth. Lachain misatzel behioso bashar. Therefore, he is lazy in being at the gate. So we'll see what that means. Say again?
It's impossible to get the depth of their character.
Yeah, the character of Chachmos. Yeah. And therefore he is lazy in being in the gate. So I think that means, I don't know why I use the word misatzel. I don't know if that means he has a laziness problem that prevents him from going there, or when he is in the gate, he displays atzlos. Yeah.
I was wondering, like after I said that the Mitzudas was kind of like the Meiri, I was wondering if that's some like a Meiri approach to the fool is that he's also lazy. And that's,
Yeah.
Like, intertwined.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely going to be an overlap. See, but that's the thing is like I view laziness primarily as you want the thing, but then then you have a problem applying yourself to get it, either because of the side on laziness of compulsion to avoid immediate pain and conflict. But I don't see the fool. I mean, maybe the fool's like that. Let's see. Let's just finish reading this. Yeah, let me finish reading the Meiri first. Okay. He's like a mute person who doesn't open his mouth. I think that's what Elam is. Okay, so it's just extra aleph. So he's learning it as high up, yeah, like lofty, right? Not precious stones. That's why he says nimnaos be'einav. It's impossible, not that it's rare. Okay. V'yesh mefarshim also ramos v'gavish. Some do say it's a precious stone. Klomer morgolios v'avanim yikaros shem nimtzayim. Yeah, see, he even says it in the same terms that they are precious. Morgolios is always the thing about how you translate morgolios, right? Is it rubies, pearls, or is it corals? I've seen it translated in three ways. And avanim and precious stones, shem nimtzayim, which are found with inav haim bilti nimtzayim, but in his eyes they're not to be found. Yeah. So what were you asking?
Well, I was just asking the cause and effect here. I was also still in precious stones.
Yeah.
And then so he's saying that the aleph is extra, right?
In the first one, yeah.
Yeah.
For the impossible.
And is that a pseudo? Like I know Greek sieves are usually like.
No, I think it's just alternate spellings. Like I mean, lahavdil, color and kalur. You know, like the British spelling.
The aleph does not have a Nikuda on it.
Right. So you don't pronounce it anyway. Right.
Yeah. So is he saying you can just write this word two different ways?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And that's not uncommon in in Tanakh. Yeah. Right. So I do want to figure out now what he means by misatzel bihioso bashar. I think misatzel bihioso bashar is he is lazy when he is in the gate, meaning when he is with other chachamim. So that's interesting. So I'm just going to follow that thought for a second, which is if you view chachma as out of your reach, then then one of the manifestations of that is when you're with chachamim, you will not exert yourself to try to obtain the chachma that could be attained by the fact that there are chachamim there, which is an interesting thing because I think that answers our question of Mishlei is not typically directed at the avil, as we see that evilim chachma was evilim bazu, but this is directed to we each have a pintele avil inside of us, right? A spark of the avil, like a pintele yid, but it's a pintele of an avil. You ever heard the expression pintele yid? Right, it's a spark of pintele yid. Yeah. All right, good. I got to introduce you to that term. I don't know if I feel proud of that, but there is an inner avil in us. Oh, here, see if you can think of the same thing. What well-known statement of Chazal expresses this as a obstacle to Chachma that all of us can experience. The fact that we will not ask Chachamim when we're with them. Yeah. Ein habayis lomed, right? So I think this is a ein habayis lomed. Now that can stem from many things, but one of the causes of ein habayis lomed is this evilos, right? Is this quality of evil? Because the Meiri in 1:7 said one of the causes of despising it is he sees that he can't live up to it. So it's a self-image problem or a self-evaluation problem. Like, I'm not good enough to do this, and so therefore, even when it's within his reach, he won't take the opportunity to get it. That's a really interesting problem. I would like to think about that in practical terms here. Yeah, I heard an intake of breath, a statement in a hand. I don't know which one. Yeah.
What is producing this feeling within the Avel? Right?
Avil?
Yeah. Is it?
We were talking about Avelos before this. It's okay. Yeah.
Is it seeing these Chachamim being magnificent that's discouraging him, or is it that he already has this discouragement and then that's feeding into?
Right. So the way he's talking about it, it sounds like actually I'm not sure, because I'll tell you why. Because all right, let me just get this out on the table here. So how is he going to view Chachamim? He's going to have to view them as like superhuman type figures in some way, like these guys are just like naturally gifted, or like they just have what it takes and I just don't have what it takes, So the question is, how much of this is being brought from inside, and then and he's just kind of like numb to the presence of the Chachamim because he just doesn't see this as something that's within his reach. I'll give you an example of this. Is a side point, but I think it's an example that so I used to give a study skills class in Shalhevet, and it was once every other week, but it was divided by it was for ninth graders, and it was divided by the kids who were in honors and the kids who were in grade level. And I would always do my first class, I always wanted to do something like flashy, so I would call on them for attendance and then have them say a random object or a random something, just say a random word, and I would write it on the board, and then I would go through again and again. I'd have like 30 to 40 random items on the board, and then I would say, what if I told you that I could teach you a trick to remember all of these in order in 10 minutes? And then they'd be like, no, and then I'd teach them the memory palace technique, and then I'd have them practice. And then I would say, okay, I would start off by having, before I even said all this, I'd have them raise their hands to indicate how they would rank their own memory capacity, like on a scale of 1 to 10. And then I would teach them the technique, have them practice it. And then I would choose someone who had ranked themselves low, and she would get up and she would recite all 40 of them in order, and then she'd be amazed, everybody would be amazed. So the thing I taught this class for years, and the thing I always saw is the honors kids would immediately apply themselves to try the techniques, and the grade level kids had been so conditioned to view themselves as stupid that many of them wouldn't even try, and they would just get discouraged and they wouldn't even try. And I feel like that is one possibility that I think the Avil might have, is if he views this as not within his reach, these Chachamim are like somehow magical people, and I'm just not in that category. The other possibility is the feeling is not active, and then when he sees the Chachamim, then that triggers something, and it's a reaction to the Chachamim. So the question is, B'shar lo yiftach pihu, is that just like a gilui milsa, or is that the actual stimulus that prevents him from opening his mouth? And the nafkamina could be, will he open his mouth in other places when he's not confronted with that thing? So that's the question. I don't have the answer, but yeah.
It seems like it could very possibly be that it's this stimulus that is developing this behavior, and so you need to pull him away from Chachamim for a little bit in order to have him work in his own group, and then build up to the point where he
Right. So I think that advice is definitely going to be good for the person who's struggling with this as a midah, like the lo bash and lo made type person. But I feel like the Avil in chapter 1, pasuk 7, kind of has already formulated a stance on this, and Mishlei is not talking to that person. We have seen in our Monday Night Mishlei shiur that there is a way to reach him sometimes, but it's not who Mishlei is talking to. But I think for the rest of us, then this is something that you can do. Yeah.
I remember when I was younger.
Yeah.
Rebbe was giving shiur.
Yeah.
My dad would encourage me to come.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm not going to understand it, and so I don't want to even.
Right.
It,
Yeah.
And like, to some extent that might have been true. That wasn't understand it.
Yeah.
But also, like, I definitely would have gotten something out of it. Like,
Yeah.
But like, there's this feeling of like, if I'm not going to be able to like do it, it's kind of like if I'm not able to do it, to the utmost, then like there's no point in even trying.
Okay, right. So let me actually combine that with this other insight from before, that I think this is a good thing to have in mind in parenting and in teaching, that what might manifest as they don't like learning or they're resistant to this is often just stemming from a feeling of inadequacy and that this is out of their reach. And I think that's when Sean, you gave an example of like putting them with people in their own group, but I think it could just be anything that shows them that they have a mastery that can quantitatively is on the same spectrum as this chachma, I think would be a way to like get them on the right track. In other words, if you show them that they can, like, here's an example, I mean, I can't help myself when someone asks a good question that I say that that's a good question, but secondarily, I see that there are like kids in high school who have never been told that they've had asked a good question, and like it reinforces the fact that like, oh, I can think profound thoughts, and like just showing them something that shows that they are partaking of chachma could then start to dissolve or chip away at like this feeling of inadequacy, and then that's how you get them in the door. That's a good technique, I think. But again, I think there's so many people who would just like say, oh, this kid is just not a learner, or this kid is just not interested, or like and it might manifest as hating learning. Like you might have a parent who's in that situation who says, oh, my kid's just not interested in Torah, and it's just that's just a very, very superficial reactionary way of framing it. And the causes are much more subtle and evoke compassion, I think, if anything, Yeah.
I don't think מאירי is saying this, but I could see pride as also being an obstacle because.
Say pride, you say? Yeah.
So someone wore, or I guess kind of flip side of embarrassment. Someone wore to try to start developing chachma and like interacting with the chachamim.
Yeah.
It had to be revealed for the ignorance that they currently are.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And that is going to be the ultimate obstacle that of the busha, right? Of not wanting to be exposed, as like not knowing either to themselves or to others.
Yeah, I was gonna say not just to others, but it like a lot of times learning requires accepting that you really don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's an interesting thing. Yeah. Yeah. You got to realize you don't know before you can know. Yeah. Ezra. Yeah.
So I was actually thinking this yesterday, so it's actually a practical application
Okay.
of my own theory.
Okay.
And like I don't remember yesterday.
Yeah, I do remember.
I was going to forget it.
Yeah.
But I was actually going to say like it's similar to Anna Bishop.
Oh yeah.
Like it seems like he kind of has chachma, but he's scared that it's going to be critiqued or something.
Yeah.
Whether or not it will be critiqued.
Right.
He's scared of saying it at all.
Right.
Because it might be critiqued.
Yeah. Well, now that you're saying it, I think it's a stupid idea. So. Yeah. Ezra wakes up in a cold sweat. Yeah. Yeah. No, I do. Yeah. Okay. This is just a side methodology point, which is, it is an interesting thing because you can have an association like this and then be about to voice it and then realize like, no, I'm just projecting, or like, I'm just associating to this, but it could actually be, this is the trick with intuition, right? Is like, this could be stemming from an actual like, no one is saying busha here, right? No one's actually saying busha, but my mind's going that way. Your mind went that way, So like, I do think though, that just talking about the test case, like the only way to refine your intuition is to voice it in the presence of someone who is further along the line than you in developing the intuition, and then subject it to that scrutiny. And like, you're going to get like cases that are on target and cases that are not. And then that's how you refine it. So like, you got to voice it anyway, Yeah. Isaac and then David. Yeah.
I feel like this is a resistance that I have to learning practical areas of halacha. I never liked it when going through like a Pesach sugya or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I want to feel like I just like know everything.
Yeah.
Because,
Right.
Because it like feels bad to not know something that that like I like should know.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm wondering also if this is one reason why people don't typically learn Dine Mominos things, because it's very difficult.
Yeah.
And it requires recognizing that you really don't know anything much about Dine Mominos because like because for some reason it's just
definitely applies to Kachim. I can tell you that much. That reminds me. Oh yeah, sorry.
But I feel like with something like Kachim, it feels, at least to me, it feels safer to say, "Oh, I don't know,"
right?
Because it's like, oh, people don't know,
right?
Like or like obscure mitzvos, like Haskin Yasid.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, right. Yeah. I just want to also point out something that you said reminded me that this problem of Einabash and Lomed, or this manifestation of the inner reveal, can apply at any stage in your learning, right? Like it's not something you just get past. Like it could be when you're in the company of certain chachamim, it could be reawakened, or if you get to a certain level in your learning, or you get, there's also a reality-based thing. Okay, I always say the Dunning-Kruger effect, and then I remember Tamar sending me the article that says that the Dunning-Kruger effect is not what people think it is. If anyone knows what it is, then you can say it, but it has something to do with something that people who know more are prone to. Is that a fair statement?
No idea what it is.
Okay, so okay, fine. Okay, whatever.
It's not real.
Okay, whatever. So, but there is a real phenomenon. Let's not call it the Dunning-Kruger effect. Then there is a real phenomenon that the more you learn in an area, the more you realize you don't know, and that can lead also to a clamming up, which is stemming from real intellectual humility and self-knowledge, but like could also be inhibitory for growth. So that's just something to be aware of. Also, like you might be telling. Let's say you go to let's say you go to Shavua shiur, right? And it's the highest level shiur, and like you might have a question and not ask it, and give yourself all sorts of reasons for why you're not asking it, and where was I going with this? That they might even be good reasons, and it might be like you're confronted with like, wow, I know so little compared to all these other people in the room. But like the question is still at the end of the day, what is going to be best for your own development and learning? Like, should you ask the question? Like you have to view it in that practical development way, I think. And that can sometimes help you push through the shame. Yeah.
That reminds me of another example. When I was in grad school, I would be in like a class of like 200 people, and I'd be like the only person who would ask questions.
Yeah.
Because, and it wasn't like I was at like, I don't think it was like everyone else was understanding it. And
right.
We were doing like some pretty hard material. I was like hoping to explain this. Like, and like, or like something like when the teacher said something that I thought was a mistake, but like totally like it was like not intelligible, and then he would be like, oh yeah, that said the wrong thing.
Right.
And like it's just like no one felt,
I mean, I think we are all very like blessed by the fact that we came of age intellectually in environments that lend themselves to discussion and asking questions, because I can only imagine how hard it is if you are trying to combat this inner tendency and you were raised in an environment that doesn't encourage questions. Like I've heard, and again, I have no experience with this, I've heard that the norm in many yeshivos is that the Magid shiur gives shiur, and like it's almost like a college lecture, and like everyone just listens, and like they'll take certain clarification questions, but it's not like this interactive thing like we have as a norm here. I think that if we didn't have that, then we'd be at a big disadvantage. David, what are you gonna say?
Okay, it sounds a lot like what has already been said by like saying it in a more explicit way. I think I've done a lot of what would stop someone from talking in this, like the Musha here also, is attaching oneself to the ideas that they have and like making that their identity, and then taking things personally when they get something wrong or something is incorrect.
Right.
I think from then, because something becomes personal, they're not willing to have a bad idea, quote unquote. I think that is probably.
I think so. I think I don't remember, and I'm not going to look at it now. But if the Rabbeinu Yonah on Avos of Lo Habash and Lo Made, I think says something that is like that. So say ulamad, okay. So, all right. So I think we have time for a couple more. Who do we want to go to next? Where should we go next?
Well, I saw the footnote by the Meiri said that it's the נחmiash who said it's like stones.
Okay, so let's do. Does he start on the previous page or on our page?
It's not on our page. So
Oh yeah, so on our current page, Ramos is Evan Yakara, Mikizros Ramos, Bagadish, Batam ki Vil, Choshev HaChachmos, Kiluhin Ramos. So the Vil thinks of the wisdoms as though they are precious stones. Shlo yuchal hagia aleim, that he cannot reach. Al Kain eno rodef akram. That's therefore he doesn't pursue them. It's funny, yeah, because he takes the Meiri's first interpretation, but says it like the precious stones. Bischarzos, in exchange for this, I don't know why he's using that phrase. Onesh. So he's using schar to mean onesh. Okay, great. We have a word for that, but yeah. Bischarzos, bishar shesham hachachamim lo yiftach pihu. Okay, Be'ela Devarim Rabba, because that was all the same. In Ela Devarim, in Breshis Rabba, in Midrash Rabba Devarim, Ramos Levil Chachmos, Amar Rabbi Yanai, Lamaha Davar Dome. So what can this be compared to? L'kikar Shaya Talui Ba'avir. I don't know if this is kikar, a loaf that is suspended in the air. I guess, was it? Yeah, that's also gold, right? So I don't know if this is, let's see. Probably gold is going to be, okay. Tipesh Omer, Miyuchal Horido. The fool says, who can bring it down? Upikeach Omer v'halo echad tala oso. Maybe he said, didn't someone hang it up? Maybe sulam o kane umorido. So just get a ladder or get a cane and bring it down. Kacha tipish kishenichnas lebeis midrash v'roi nosim v'nosnim b'talmud omer emisai ekra ani kol zeh. When the tipish goes into the base midrash and sees everyone debating in Talmud, he says, "When will I be able to learn all this?" V'apikech omer, and the pikech says, "Eshne perek echad b'chol yom ad she'esayim es kol haTorah kula." The pikech says, "Read Atomic Habits." Yeah, do a little bit. Tiny habits. Do a little bit each day, and then that's how you accumulate. You know. So that's an interesting thing also. Let's just think about that mashal and see if there's anything we get from the mashal that we didn't get before, yeah?
I had this imagery when he was talking about the gold coin that was like that. Like the having like $1 on the fishing rod. Like,
yeah, yeah, that's funny. Oh, that was another interpretation we had yesterday, right? That the Avil, that was the approach you were trying to take with the Avil, that the Avil is going to portray himself as though he has chachmos, and then when you ask him for advice, then he's going to be like withholding it, or he doesn't really have it. But so I was saying that as an example of what he'll do is he'll use these evasive techniques to like always keep it out of reach. But yeah, that just reminded me of that. Yeah. So what do we get from this? And I feel like we have all experienced this in some way, right? Like maybe not entering the base midrash and seeing people debating, but this feeling of like what do you call the insurmountable quantity of material that you need to learn, and I think that's the interesting thing. This is quantitative, right? This is not like both in the mashal of the height and in terms of the havamina or the tipeshus thing. How can I learn all of this and then I'll do a little bit day by day? Yeah.
This seems the mashal seems to go a little bit more like the Sajigon, where like it doesn't actually have the chachma right now.
Right.
It's right there in reach.
Yeah, right.
It just needs like a stick.
Yeah, correct.
And,
yeah.
Like he just says to himself, "Oh, I can't get it," and like walks away.
Right.
But like
so that I think just to put that in ninth grade Rabbi study school terms, there is such a thing as tools for getting chachma. You know, one of the tools is the Yomi program. You know, another tool is like starting with starting with what is accessible to you and then working your way up. Another tool is the Ein Adam Lomin El Mishlei Podcast of like following your desire. You know, there's lots of different tools, but he just views it as though it's up there and there's no way to get it. You know, and that's the other thing also is like I think the in the mashal, I think I'm reading this correctly. So that means, well, some guy put it up there, right? Meaning it didn't get up there by itself. Means so it must be attainable, because some guy was able to get it. But again, I think the Avil is prone to thinking, nope, these are just lamdanim, and I'm just not a lamdan. You know, like it's an intrinsic quality of the person or some magical quality. Yeah, Isaac?
Yeah, I sometimes feel this way when I look at for Pesach.
Welcome to the club. Yeah.
Like, you know, like, let's just take into like halacha. Like, you know, I feel like usually like I have the feeling of this feeling like he knows everything. He was born knowing everything.
Yeah, right.
And like how could I possibly get that level of knowledge?
Yeah.
But like obviously that's not the case. That he was born knowing everything.
Right.
So I feel like that's like a useful case to talk about.
That's why one of my favorite moments in all of TTL is in methodology. Is that D1 or D2? That's the most basic shiur. That's the what versus why, which must have been in 1970 or 71. And Rebbe is teaching the difference between what versus why, and he's giving them test examples. And then you hear the voice speak up, and it's Mendy Fader, and like he proposes an answer, and Rebbe goes, "You got a good head, Mendy, but you're still asking a why question, And like seeing that, and then seeing like where Mendy Fader is today, like I remember being extremely inspired by that as when I was in yeshiva, of like. Oh, Mendy asked why questions too when he was first starting out. Like it's okay to not be, and then just working your way up. I also want to mention before I forget that I guess no, I'll mention at the end. Yeah, go ahead. I won't forget. Probably.
Also, okay, the trap is not breaking things down into smaller parts.
Correct. Yeah.
That. If you look at things in their entirety and the big picture, then you aren't going to be able to see a path.
Right.
It's impossible to look at big picture things and see a path. You need to actually focus on what is doable for you at the moment. And starting there, and then you don't need to see the path because that's just going to lead you to the next thing. Okay, so I'll now quote something I've quoted a lot before. Is Rabbi Sachs's uncle, the tool shed mashal, which I'll say again, is that Rabbi Sachs, this is our Rabbi Sachs, Rabbi Yoni Sachs, had an uncle who had a tool shed, and the tool shed had all sorts of tools lining all the walls. And he asked his uncle, uncle, how do you learn how to use all these tools? So the uncle said, well, I didn't start off with all these tools. I started off with, I picture him with a Southern accent, which I can't do, so I'm not going to say it, but just picture that in your mind. I started off with a hammer and a screwdriver and a wrench. And I tinkered at this and I tinkered at that and like learned how to use those things. Then I eventually realized this screwdriver won't really work for all the screws. I need two screwdrivers, and then I split off. And then there's different kinds of wrenches. And like, if I only had a smaller wrench, and he branched off from those until he learned all the tools. So if you went into the tool shed and you said, I'm going to go learn each of these tools, that would be impossible, right? That like each one on its own is impossible. But if you start with Yesodos and then branch outward, that's one of the great things about Yesodos, is that if you master them, it leads to learning all the particulars that emanate from them. Yeah. The other thing about that approach is it creates a relational conception of these things. That you see how things progress.
Correct. In an organic way.
In an organic way that you're not going to get if you just view everything as a whole.
I think these are all good ideas, but I do think that there's something that hold on a second. See, what's interesting is hold on. I want to focus more on the quantitative dimension here. He sees people arguing about these things, right? And then he says, when am I going to learn all this? And then the remedy is each day I'll learn a parak, right? So I guess my question is, there's two ways to learn what he's seeing in the Beis Midrash. Right? One way is he's seeing the tremendous Bekius. I think this is the pshat of the mashal, is the tremendous Bekius. And he says, how am I going to learn all this? And then the remedy is they didn't learn it all in one shot. They just did it gradually over time, So I think that's pshat. I'm wondering if you take it the other way also, because nosei v'nosein, although it requires Bekius is not sufficient. You need analytical ability as well, right? You can't argue just with facts. You need to be able to think about the facts, So I'm wondering also if there is if it's possible to read this mashal as some relationship between the quantitative grunt work it takes to form the foundation of the analytical prowess that is manifested in like debating. Because that's a reality, right? Like you need to go through many like a certain critical accumulation of facts, then also just like lots and lots of examples in shiurim of like analysis to be able to get to this point. And I think, I guess what I'm trying to bring out here is I'm saying that, like, I think it's hard to see qualitative skills in thinking coming from quantitative intake of facts, but that is a reality. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way that Torah is specifically, lends itself for that. That if you're just like, trying to, understand just what you're learning, for like, when you're doing each character, like there will be halachos that are just so weird and unusual that if you don't understand the underlying principles, I think you'll kind of like be like forced to think about them. And then if you let yourself do that, then you'll you'll learn how to think better. I agree. Let's I know I actually forgot to put it in the packet. I want to look at the raw dog. So he says, Ramos, Hine HaChachmos, Ramos le'Aviel. So the Chachmos are, so he just takes out the aleph, are high up for the Aviel. Lo Yishar Ba'asmo Shiuchal Hasik. He doesn't estimate, he doesn't evaluate himself as being able to attain it. Lo Yiftach Pihu B'Yoso B'Shar as HaChachamim. And therefore he won't open his mouth when he's in the gate. Es here means with the Chachamim. Uber Achar Zeh Hasiba. And it says the cause. Interesting. The Amar, sorry, that's the next pasuk. All right, spoiler alert. All right, so let's Shtal's not going to say anything. No. Non-agur Ariri. All right, Hoil Moshe. He's been a favorite lately. That's interesting. So he's going, I skipped one. So he can't reach them. So when the people of the city gather, so that's interesting, not the Chachamim. He's learning as a gathering place for like the city, the Makom Havad, to the place of counsel, Lehivites, to be advised. Muchrachu livlom piv, he needs to muzzle himself, pen yitzachu olav, lest they laugh at him. I am reading into this, but I think it's a just reading. The fact that he's not saying it is a gathering of Chachamim, and he's saying being advised. I wonder what that is.
Meaning like that's like someone sitting in a shiur kind of thing. Like I'm gonna ask this question because I'm gonna look like an idiot. Right. People do this with practical halacha also, right? Like I can't ask this practical question because I'm going to look like an idiot for not knowing the answer to this. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a different feeling though than in the theoretical realm, right? Like I should know I should know the answer to this basic question in practical. I mean, that's the good kind of busha. The Rambam says only when you learn Kol Torah Kula, by learning the Mishnah Torah, will you get rid of that busha, because you'll be able to look at all the mitzvos and have knowledge of what to do. So that's a positive type of busha. And I think, see, this is I think what you should do. This is another thing. See, I think a lot of teachers are accustomed to saying when someone if someone expresses reluctance to ask a stupid question, teachers will say, "There's no such thing as a stupid question," right? So I always quote Chazal or Mivchar Pninim, I forgot where it is, that says, no, there is such a thing as stupid questions, but it says you should. There's a mamar that says you should ask stupid questions. And I think you have to, it's almost like exposure therapy. You need to expose yourself to that feeling of stupidity, because the only way through to Chachma is to be able to tolerate that and overcome. See, that's the atzlus of not wanting the immediate conflict of the feeling of shame. You need to break through that to get to the Chachma. Yeah.
What's Nivchar Pninim? Nivchar
Pninim is a collection of Jewish and Arabic proverbs that is heavily quoted by Meiri and Rabbeinu Yonah. I don't know where it originated, and it's available in like a volume of Hebrew text, but it's they quote it a ton. Yeah. We'll wrap up soon. Yeah.
I think there's almost like two bushes here. One is like the busha of being embarrassed to ask.
Yeah.
And the other is the busha of Oslo Avosh.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like you need to focus and cultivate that busha.
Yeah.
So that because that will overpower the other.
Yeah, that's a good way to view the two busha relationships. Yeah.
So it seems from your showing that this appeal does not actually have any chachma.
Right. Scared
to get it. Or whatever.
Yeah. And it's sorry. Yeah.
I was gonna say that it's thinking that if he did have chachma, that thinking that the pasuk is saying that he does have chachma and he's just scared to like share it
Yeah.
or whatever, or he won't share it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like, is that contrary to like the other liming that we have, like innovation we sorry, like siag l'chachma shesika, where like.
Are you asking that like the approach, let's say, like we were taking earlier, assuming that he has chachma,
Yeah.
right? Are you saying that are you asking, does the fact that the other Mefarshim are not saying that, are they not saying that because it goes against other things we have? Yeah. I got to think about this more. I don't know offhand because the idea definitely checks out.
Yeah.
And I think it's also with chachma, if we're learning chachma in the technical sense of received knowledge, it's definitely possible not just possible, it's likely that every Avil who's Jewish is going to have chachma, right? Just by virtue of being a Jew, yeah. So I don't think it necessarily contradicts things. So I got to think about it a little bit more though. I just want to mention also just with the B'chol Yom thing. So it happens to be, I believe today is the 400th Mishlei shiur. And so I think, again, it's just every time I look at, I haven't updated in a while. I have a document with all the pasukim that I've given Mishlei shiurim on since I came here. Speaking of Mishlei a day keeps the Satan away, like just a little bit of Mishlei each day not only gives you a lot of Mishlei ideas, but you end up shaping your whole way of thinking about decision making by just doing a little bit a day. Like it's a good example of this phenomenon of the נחמיאש, but playing itself out in the realm of decision making.
Yeah, I was thinking about this when we were talking about this.
Yeah.
Like in this year we've done the past 2.5 years, we've done like a fifth or a sixth of Mishlei.
That's crazy. Yeah. Right. We started with 18 and there's So it really is like, again, because when I used to tell people like in my high school Mishlei shiur, like other Mishlei teachers, I only do one pasuk each class. They'd be like, oh, that's nothing, but yeah, it's nothing. But if you do it quality and you do it every day, it ends up, a lot of nothings add up to one big something. That's the moral of the story. Yeah. Okay. All right. This is good. I always love it when they tie it to like what we're involved in yeshiva, like the development process. It's always like a special bonus. Yeah. All right, very good pasuk.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.